Hey guys, welcome back to another tutorial just on how you can make your own table using the MySQL database. Just a quick heads up on the last video, which was actually troubleshooting it if it didn't start. When I was showing you, I didn't actually have my Apache web server running. You need that running. So let's kick off. You want these two servers running. And if you remember from the last one, we go localhost / phpMyAdmin, and we're in our database or our database server. So firstly, you want to head over to the left here. You want to click new, and this is to create a new database. Just want to give your database a name and keep it as collation. Click create, and you'll see on the left side it's being created. Now you'll also notice that you have some default ones already, like this MySQL, information schema, etc. Don't worry about those, just keep those, they come default. So you want to make sure we have our database that we just made selected, and you want to create a table. Now we can use this structure tab to create it with a GUI instead of actually coding in SQL. But when it comes to our PHP, which is actually where we're going to be running all the SQL code, you're going to have to do it in the SQL code. So it's better to learn the slightly harder way, but the better way, and the way you'll need to learn it eventually. So if you come next to that structure tab, you have the SQL tab. Just click on that, and this is where we can run SQL queries on the database, so we can create tables, select all info from tables, etc. So let's say in the upcoming tutorial I'm going to make on the Instagram API, we want to save access tokens, so let's make a table for that. So you type in create, let me zoom in here. There we go now. So to create a table, firstly you type in create. Just notice it will auto complete it for you, and you'll see it's in capitals. That's okay, so just hit enter and it will auto complete for you. So we want to create table and give it a name, so access underscore tokens, for example, anything you want. And then you want to open your brackets, and you want a semicolon at the end. And now we can actually put in the columns in our table. So for each table entry there will be a row, and for each column that's the section of data we're going to be making. So the access token would be one column, maybe the user ID would be another. So firstly, whenever you create a table, you always want to make this column, you want it to be an auto increment key. So for every user, so we have a first user and that'll be 1, and then our second user will be 2, and it won't have to be specified, it will just update automatically. So we're going to go ahead and make that. So I'm going to call it UID for user ID. I'm going to start by giving it a length, which you can specify with int, so an integer, and 11. This doesn't mean that we can only have up to 11 people in our table. Obviously that'd be a bit silly. That means we can have 11 numbers after each other, one after each other. So we can have 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, so on. 11 nines, which I think is plenty. Next, you want to make an auto increment, so that's where it automatically makes an increment, and you want it to be the primary key. And last but not least, we also want to type in not null, so this can't be empty. And that's our first line. To make another column, you just put a comma at the end of that and enter. Now for our second column, let's say we want to call that access token, where we're going to be storing the access tokens. Again, we don't want that to be empty because that's what we're making this table for. And we're going to specify how long we want it to be. So we can type in var char, all one word, brackets, and I'm going to put in 256. Well, actually, you know what? Because normally you would want to do that. 256 is a cap you want to put on the amount of info you can have in the column. But since it's an access token, we can actually specify it as text, because it's always going to be a defined amount. It's not user input, so we don't have to worry about people putting in massive strings. It's always a set amount. And as the final column, we can put in the username, for example. I'm going to set that to varchar. I'm going to set this one to varchar 256 because we want a cap on that. So 256 characters, I think that's plenty. And we want this not to be not null. Now for the last one, we don't need a comma. Since it's the last one, we're not declaring anything after it. And if we click, let me just zoom back out here. If we click go, you will see MySQL return an empty result set, so an empty table. Now you'll see in our database, we have a table called access tokens as we specified here. And you can see we have 3 columns, a user ID, an access token column, and a username column. Now for each user we put in here, there will be a new row will be created. So if we go back to the SQL, just delete that. So we can actually artificially recreate a user being added to the database with this access token. So the way we do that is we type in insert. Let me just zoom in again. Insert into the table name. So our table name is access tokens, and we put in the column names that we want to insert into. So the column names are access underscore token and username, and then we type in values after that, and then brackets as well, and corresponding to those respectively. So we put in access token first. So here we can put in an access token example. Normally this will just be a string of numbers and characters, so as an example, and comma, and then the username. So we can put in, this is a username, and we should be able to run that. Like click go, and you can see 1 row inserted. Now if we go back to our table, you can see we have 1 row, user ID of 1. We didn't need to specify that because it auto incremented. We have an access token, and we have the username that we specified. So that's how we'll be doing it in our PHP code. I'll show you how to actually run that. They will be all part of that tutorial, but I hope you enjoyed this. Not too long, just how to get started with phpMyAdmin and SQL. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and check out my other ones. Thank you.